Well, this just gets better and better. I feel and I envision very soon there is going to be a birth of a son, and another son, and another son. It's all inspired by your comments. Is it coincidence, for example? I'm going to pick on one of you, Beth. It's the first syllable of Bethlehem. Who was born in Bethlehem in the story? See, you play the role of the creator, the inspiration. When you are asking as king, quest I on, when you are asking questions which inspires a response, through that response, I feel what is then birthed, not in a physical form, is a son. Because this is not telling you anything you don't already know. Biblical quotes would be, there is nothing made that was not first made. So there's the conundrum in a way in this reality of, how can I be original if there is nothing new under the sun? But when we compare between the metaphysical and the physical, consider where the solar plexus is. The gut feeling, the God feeling. There's nothing new under the sun. So what is below the gut is basically reproductive organs that are going to generate and perpetuate, in this physical sense, a species called humanity. But what is above the sun? A question in the comment was, who cares? I could almost go into a poem of who cares, you will find out when you become aware. But I thought we'd just go for a wander around the garden on this one. I've been pondering who. Who cares? Well, who is the answer? That's who cares. Who? It is just a perception of not knowing what who is. Consider this. In the story, God breathes life into Adam through the nostrils. So I'm asking you, anyone that is listening to this, as you breathe in, who or what is doing the breathing? It's something you can take conscious control of for a start. It's a huge theme in itself. If you think of religious services, often they'll have incense, which creates a smell, a fragrance that you breathe in. You can go and inhale the smell, the fragrance of a blossom of a tree, and consider how that feels. Consider, one moment, a little cough break there. Breathing, let's go to the other end of the scale. Let's think of like new age, hippie trippy, and then it's pretty much like this. All I need is the headband and the joss stick burning and the incense. Often if you go to something like a psychic fair or some sort of spiritual retreat, there will be incense sticks. Now, to what level of inner standing those that facilitate such events and things actually consider about the incense, and it's the breathing in, the fragrance, the essence The Who is, as shown in the longest running science fiction, Doctor Who. It's a Time Lord, one that can collapse time. You all have that ability. You can create time, you can lose time, and so on. What I'm actually seeing unfold, I can look at many different YouTube channels, and what do I see? I see time collapsed. I see the Florence Scovel Shin. I see the Joseph Benner. I see the Neville Goddard. I see the Joseph Murphy. I see the Rudolf Steiner, the Alan Watts, the Mandy P. Hall, the Frank B. Robinson, the Walter and Leo Russell. I see the same message, the same essence. I mean, when you're breathing in, you're taking in. But now if we change it from in a physical form as smoke, which is very close to spirit, and we take it more into a smoke for the mind that is demystifying so much, you start to see that there is no past. I would go so far as to say that many YouTube channels, and I can look at the external world to confirm this, even something like YouTube, if you sign up, you have to accept the terms and conditions. Well, the conditions and the terms, well, the conditions are in the individual if they are open and receptive to hear the message. The terms are the age that you're in. So the Joseph Benner and the Florence Scovel Shin, two of the sort of earlier New Thought writers. I'm seeing again today the YouTube channels of today in the what we would see or perceive in linear time as the future are the new names, but essentially are the same beings. The essence of the message is exactly the same, but the conditions are different. We're in a technological age in a different way from the early 1900s, less mechanical and more just purely electronic, and moving into non-visible actions which you would see, say, with a typewriter compared to a inkjet printer. So that is reflecting moving into the unseen in itself. See, the Who is the dreamer. Let's just break down the etymology of dream and dreamer. Because D, the fourth letter, 4 is the door. So it's come from something and now it's become a ream. Imagine if you were to write out, say, your life story. Just on the external outplay, how many reams and reams of paper that would come to. That's not even including the non-physical aspects, which would be far greater. The universe really is you inverse, as I gave as a meaning or a perception of what the David and Goliath story is about. The comparison of the giant represented by the physical body and that spark of light in the darkness that is no bigger than a pinhole. It's sort of alluded to in it is easier to get a camel through the eye of a needle than a rich man into heaven. It references also with Goliath and where that pebble hits the mind's eye. Because it's not the needle, it's the eye of the needle. It's so easy to get taken down a wrong path by the objective side of the story and miss the deeper meaning, which is actually in the action of passing through the eye. It references again back to no one sees the Father except through the Son. The Son, the risen Christ, would be where the mind's eye is, that projects out into the world. So who cares? Well, that's exactly who does care. It is who. The W represents like a magnetic sine wave that ends up in its highest level, whereas the M would be in its lower level if you're writing out the letter or character M or W. The H represents humanity. It's the two pillars, the 11 with the central placed bridge. And then of course the O is the organic, the whole, because the universe is whole within a physical body. It's a wheel within a wheel. It is the micro to the macro. Now you can play small or you can play big. Of course, it's expressed as, say, Jupiter as being about expansion. Interesting as well, if we take the name Beth and Bethlehem, which means house of bread. A slang expression in the UK when a woman is pregnant is, oh, you've got a bun in the oven. You'll find that bread is often used as like in the breaking of the bread at the Last Supper. It's nothing to do with the bread, it's to do with the action of what is happening. It's like a shell, and it's opening up to find the seed, to find the Christ consciousness within oneself that is being put into the oven to be able to rise and to become perfectly formed, not raw in the middle and not burnt on the outside, baked to perfection into this reality. They're just metaphors and parables. To give you an example, if I was from a different age and I had the word shoe to represent a flying object that is maybe no higher than 4 inches off the ground, it basically just levitates and I could move things on it, and I call it a shoe. If it was interpreted from maybe the wind sound of the movement of that thing, it may sound like shoe. And there's also the analogy of when we walk, when we lift the one leg up to take the next step. You could sort of see that how the word shoe could morph from describing or being the name of a piece of technologically advanced equipment, something to levitate and move, say, heavy stone blocks, for example. But now it has sort of morphed it through interpretation from a perception of those with less of an understanding into an item of footwear. But the actual action is actually very similar. I don't know why or how that just popped into the head yesterday about the word shoe. And we can also then look at that the other way around when we're looking back at history and how things are used to describe things which you can only do in the language of the time that you're in, of the era, the term, and the conditions that you're in. As much as anything else by comparison with other things in this physical reality. So, as an example of that, a description of a steam locomotive would be called an iron horse if you are from a tribe that has never seen a locomotive before. And how would you describe it? What words would you be able to use? So from that you can see exactly how misinterpretation of things or taking things literally I mean, consider an iron horse. um, that's obviously not going. I suppose it would be possible with the right inventor. You could make a mechanical horse out of iron and get it to take footsteps and pull something behind it, but it certainly wouldn't be as efficient as using wheels on a steam locomotive. We've gone off, we've gone for a little virtual walk around the garden here. So yeah, Time Lord, collapsing time. It's effectively a role that I play. You can take this any way you want. Consider it this way. Consider every mythological male character. Consider every biblical character and much more. Generally, the rough description is I'd look like all of them. And I've been called many names, like, oh, you look like Isaiah, or you look like, oh, Gandalf, or Merlin, or anything like that, because they've all got long hair and beards. So, what better way to appear, you could say. The thing is, I know my role here. I know the parts, plural, that I am playing. And whilst some may interpret that and see it as being all egoic, it's the complete opposite, because I'm just saying, well, you could say, do it in the way I have shown you how to do it, and it becomes possible. That can be interpreted as do it in my name, which you can see how you'd get in the name of Jesus. It doesn't mean the name. It basically means in the way I have shown you. I am the way, basically. To quote an opening line from Keys to the Kingdom by Joseph Benner, I am come. Come. See, organic, magnetism, energy. One moment. Oh, what's happening here? This has gone rather strange. I didn't touch anything, honestly. I just pressed the pause button again after my little coughing fit there. Yeah, so come. So the word be, and very much the theme on the spiritual side is just be present, be in the moment. Be is the second letter. It also represents duality. It's just observing what would be deemed as good or bad or whatever. The contrast of the two, and just observing it with a childlike wonder. So be, come. So to become, you are being, and you come. It's something inside you. It's to use a more graphic way of saying it, it's an ejaculation. It's an explosion. Come is an expression for semen. But of course, this is all internally. And hopefully I have shown from what I've said earlier in this video that the comments can come from someone who is in a female form, but they are planting the seeds. They are inspiring, because we're in a realm where we're beyond the physical limitations of what is male and what is female. So it's reciprocal. It becomes more like the yin and the yang in the balance. From the inspiration of the question that is asked and the response, It just comes. I don't consciously have to think of anything. I wish I'd have made this video about 10 minutes earlier, because I just went with the thought flow. And it's like, this is like a walk around the garden. It's a beautiful experience. But let's look at the word care. It consists of see. It's a reference to seeing with the mind's eye, and are. I'm trying to think of an example. Like, we are here. So it's right now is are. So are is another way of saying be. It's in the present moment, in other words. So who cares? There is the question, and within that is also revealed the answer. Certainly Doctor Who cares, and by manipulating time, by excuse me a moment. Oh, what's happening with this? The screen's going rather strange on me. It keeps trying to... Well, that's just bizarre. I don't know why it's doing that. I apologise for this. Some sort of glitch in the matrix, I suppose. But essentially the message is always the same one. It's to help you unlock and rediscover what is already inside you. The heart knows best. The problem is that we have this thing called a conscious mind, which is a necessary step for the drama to unfold. Without that happening, we wouldn't go anywhere. We would just be and gain no experience. We wouldn't be able to test out that which we have created. That you'll see reflected in the external world, in anything material, from a cell phone to anything that's manufactured. There's always a certain amount of testing in the design, and then it is sold onwards, as it were. Generation, production. It's a material interpretation of something spiritual. It's not evil as such. It's the intention that has sort of taken hold of it that is actually the corrupt part. It's the ones that where the David didn't win and the Goliath triumphed over the David. Because we're in a realm of duality, so why would it not play out that way? But here's an interesting thought as well. Ask yourself this. You're in that situation, you're on the side of either the Israelites or the Philistines. And the agreement is that your best champion from each side will step forward and do battle. And the winning side takes all of the other. But in the way that story unfolds, when Goliath is killed, they all flee and the Israelites pursue after them and basically murder the whole lot of them. But what would you really do? Would you honour that? Would you hold to that? Because if you're going to be murdered, you're pretty much backed in the corner. Would you not, your life force energy compel you to sort of, well, to hell with the agreements. I'm breaking the agreement. If we're going to die, we're going to go down fighting. To me, that the way the story is told, it seems ridiculous that there would be, or could have been, that agreement and upheld. If they were taken, the giants were taken prisoner, that would be a different thing, and then maybe used as slaves, but still alive. But slaughtered, they might as well have fought, if that being the case. But I've digressed a little bit there. I'm sure there was more. yeah, so actually going back to the key words of this video, I am become. Um, it, it's almost, yes, it does. It comes back to the saying about the world is a stage, and to be a good actor, you take on the role of the character. You live it, you breathe it, you become it. You put on such a convincing display for the audience because they can relate to it. So that really is the intention of this. It's not from an egoic, look at me, I'm the Messiah or I'm the Saviour of the world. I'm the Saviour of this world, this physical world and what it contains within inside it, the microcosm version. You equally have that inside you. It doesn't make me special. But when there's a game and the object of the game is to be first past the finish post or to find the way out of the game, to break out or die trying is another way you could say. Well, it stands to reason that there must be at least one that will come first, but it isn't actually being first because it comes back to there's nothing new under the sun. It's just the perception and the deliberate misinterpretations that are put in place to try and hide this, but it makes the game more challenging. I mean, consider it in terms of computer games. If the levels don't get harder and there are not slightly more difficult challenges each time, how boring the game would become. But really, it's to go through the experience, whether you see it as good or bad, what you take out of this from what you take in. It comes back to the breathing in, breathing life in through the nostrils, and what is actually doing the breathing, but it's what you inhale. It's what you're taking into yourself. This, I feel, is one of the reasons that there's this sort of real anti-smoking thing, because the actual action of smoking is very similar to going into meditative state. And if you consider how the smoke would swirl around inside the lungs, it's a bit like the yin and yang symbol, and it's sort of weighing up. It's like an incense. It's like an essence. You're taking something in through the nostrils. Now, I'm not advocating here that you should smoke, but I'm not saying you shouldn't either. I'd like to make that clear. You do you. You do feel what's right for you. Again, look at the material world, and then that's almost like a deliberate pun. When you consider a man's jacket, the measurement is on the chest size, but consider if it is a man of, say, 5'2", as opposed to a man the size of, say, 6'6". If it is all based on the chest measurement, how long or short are those sleeves going to be on those two individuals? One is going to look like they're wearing a miniskirt, the other one will look like they've got a jacket that's too small for them. Because it's one size fits all. There is no one size fits all with this. It is about taking the individual path, but at the same time, whilst there are individual paths, there are also parallels. There are also what you could call coincidences. There are similarities where we can cross-compare with each other, and through doing that we can all find the exit and break free out of this reality. And the way the story is told, that basically the fiery angel that guards the gate will step aside if you've got it right anyway. It must therefore be something you resonate out from yourself, and I would say that is to lose all fear. Come from the heart. The way you conduct yourself, the way you act in this reality, if it is coming from the heart, the frequency that you will radiate out, when we're talking about these fiery angelic beings, I would suggest from that, would have some way of reading your energy, maybe like an X-ray or something, technologically more advanced, or they may have a level of perception where they will see it in your aura and they will stand aside. There is nothing to fear. The fear is the thing that will hold you back, that will not allow you through that number 4 door, the thing we call death. That's nothing to fear. That's only the physical body, because that is subject to time, but that is not you. Again, I ask you to consider who's doing the breathing, who's taking in through the nostrils. It also reminds me of something Rudolf Steiner talks about with the actual breathing. When you breathe in, it's a feeling of life, it's uplifting, and that's reflected physically with the chest lifting up, expanding. But when you breathe out, when you exhale, it's a deflation, and it's almost like a loss, but it's an ebb and flow like the tide on the seashore. It's a natural cycle to breathe in, breathe out. And it's also learning to distinguish the different fragrances and how you feel from those fragrances that you're breathing in. And I'm using that as much as anything else as a metaphor for what you take into your mind. Whether you can inhale it, let it swirl around, weigh it up before you exhale it again. Or are you going to put up a belief system in the way? I'll end on this final note. The symbol for the earth is a circle with a cross or a plus sign in the middle of it. So you've got something that is complete, which is the physical body. That is the circle. Now the cross, you are the center point of that cross. Now you want to know where the 4 corners of the world are. We'll just consider those that intersecting horizontal and vertical line. You've got 4 corners right there, right in the middle. See how easy it is to miss the point, how easy it is to be looking externally for 4 physical corners of the earth. I've no idea what the actual shape of this is. I would have thought probably circular. Everything else seems to be in circles, wheels within wheels, but I'm not really that bothered, to be honest, because I recognise there's an entire universe inside. That's an external distraction that's leading me further away than the whole point, which is the centre of that cross. As always, unconditional love to you all.